Good evening, UniVersus. I'm Levi, and welcome to Millennium Games. We've traveled all the way out to the lovely valleys of Rochester, New York for the second to last regional licensing exam of Season 2, and there's no better place to hold it here than Millennium Games, the biggest card game, board game shop in the entire country. This place is chock full of all kinds of fantastic products, sights to see, and a very, very lovely staff that's been overflowingly helpful to us the entire weekend. We have about 80 fighters signed up to battle it out for the prizes this weekend. So with that being said, let's get to the back of the venue and see what these UniVersus players are going to be up to. Have you ever seen a card shop like this? In addition to being a nerd shopping district, the back of our place is essentially a bona fide tournament venue. And behind me, you can see all of our players getting ready to compete in the action. Everyone's getting their warm-ups in, getting those last-second reps, and of course, making those choice last-minute additions to the decks. As we get to the end of the competitive season, people are really getting ready for nationals, so the action has only been non-stop heating up. What kind of games will these players show us in the 7 rounds of Swift today? Only time will tell, but I cannot wait to find out who's going to come out on top tomorrow. And with the day just about halfway through, our players are coming back from their lunch break. Let's take a look at this character breakdown. Of course, standing at the tippity top, both Overhaul and Mirio continue to dominate representation, and the top cuts aren't far off either. Overhaul, though, has really become the talk of the town lately. Hot off the heels of 2 recent RLE wins with very similar decks, he's really poising himself as the king of repeated smash, one of, if not the most relevant card in the format right now. Is he going to go 3 for 3 at Rochester? We'll just have to see. Past that, though, we sure can't forget about those Set 1 champions. This time, Nomu pulling a little bit ahead as far as the conversation is concerned. A character that's always been very, very strong and very, very stable. An extremely safe pick into a meta where people are throwing extremely big damage moves. Of course, though, the king and queen of defense and offense, Eraserhead on one end, Jiro on the other end. Eraserhead was really getting thrown around as one of the best repeated decks in the format, but it really looks like Overhaul starting to take that award from him. Is he going to end up taking it back? We'll just have to wait and see how the Aizawas pull ahead. And then, of course, we have our Rogues Gallery of Set 5 characters. Amajiki and Mimic, 2 characters that saw really heavy success back at Gen Con, with Mimic getting a 2nd place finish and Amajiki finding himself in the top cuts for the first time. Mimic was really, really going for it last time. Is he going to get the gold? If anyone can do it, it is Justin Martin with that deck. And last but certainly not least, can't underestimate Rappa. This guy finally found some serious top cut success in one of the foreign RLEs over at the EU. Is he going to make it even further this time? He's certainly a character that can bullet punch his way all the way to the gold if he finds the right combos. This is such an exciting roster, and no matter what happens, these top cuts are going to be fantastic. And so it's 7 long rounds of Swiss out the way, we headed into day 2 charging. And this top cut bracket, you know, I've seen a lot of top cut brackets in my time, guys. We've seen some real heavy meta ones. We've seen some real rogue ones. This one was just wacky. Of course, though, the meta's got to start somewhere. Right at the top, a pair of Overhauls. Of course, as the most repped character and one of the most meta characters right now. Not surprising to see him here in some capacity, although a little bit different than what's going on recently. These are both Earth Overhauls, as opposed to the success the character has recently seen on the life symbol. It just goes to show that no matter how you play this guy, there is success to be had. Speaking of success to be had, a pair of Giros. Not surprising to see here in any way whatsoever. Even as every new set comes out, this character's aggro stands the test of time, and especially in the hands of Ryan Levine and Wesley Bittner, 2 total specialists on the character, rocking 2 different symbols as well. Next up, we gotta talk about the Shie Hasaikai. Leading the charge is a pair of Rappas. This character has seen top cut slots before, however, he never quite makes it that further into the bracket. Although, with the high roll potential of this deck's bullet punch strings, there is always the chance to see him in the finals at some point in time. Next up, though, was a trio of Shie Hasaikai one-ofs. One of we've totally seen recently, which is Justin Martin's Mimic deck. This guy is still riding the high of his 2nd place finish at Gen Con, and I promise you, this time he's going to be going for the complete gold. The other 2 characters, though, It's time for their first top cut appearances. Setsuna Toya and Soramitsu Tabe, led in the hands of some incredibly skilled pilots. These guys have a lot of surprise factor on their hands as two very aggressive decks that I doubt many top cut players have a ton of experience against. Our next pair is very interesting because we have a pair of Bakugos, but not in the way that you'd think. One Bakugo 1 and one Bakugo 3. Marking his first top cut appearance, Bakugo 3 is just trying to do the blitz aggro turn blowout that most Bakugo decks are known for. But on the other side of things, we have something very unique in Tim Keefe's kind of tempo-style Bakugo 1 deck. We got a little bit of a taste of it on day 1. Let's see how far he can take it going into day 2. Continuing that Rochester pedigree, we got Kevin Broberg and Garrett Brett, no strangers to top cuts, playing Momo and Midnight, two very strong, very stable, and flexible defensive, offensive characters that we know that Rochester has been a fan of for a long time. Combined with the skill of these players, the power of their characters, the Rochester pedigree, and being on their home turf, would not be surprising at all to see them take things all the way home. And fierce was the competition. This bracket got so out of hand so incredibly fast, from massive blowout Jiro mirror matches to overhauls falling left and right, and even a Tabe all the way in top 4. My goodness, Rochester came out to entertain. But only 2 could make it to the finals, and in the Rochester baseball fashion, we had a home team and an away team. Kevin Broberg, our HLC champion and flagship of the city, up against Jacob Masur of Nomu fame and owner of his very own card store in South Carolina. The character matchup here was just as interesting, with the blocking queen Momo up against the hulking grimace himself, Nomu. A true spear and shield fight, if you will. Jacob Masur and Nomu are one of the most iconic duos of UniVersus at this point, so it's no surprise to see this character in his very specialized hands. Nomu is a 5-hand size beast of a character with a whopping 35 health, and what he lacks in card advantage and finesse, he makes up for with brute strength for days. With the ability to throw 4, 5, and sometimes even 6 damage onto all of his attacks for absolutely free, he's a powerhouse that you have to perfect block for days. On top of that, a response that says 6 damage is almost always the cap of what you can take makes him someone you have to attack into just as carefully. No one-shot kills here. Playing off of the old reliable Earth symbol, we've got a punch package here that accrues us all the card advantage that our Nomu makes every move swing in for at least 9 damage here. Calorie Counter is an attack from Undaunted Raid that has really made waves for this deck. Nomu is a character you almost always have to block, meaning both abilities on Calorie Counter will be going live non-stop. Who doesn't like a 3 difficulty move for 12 damage? Now when it comes to our late game, Relentless Barrage is the ultimate win condition. An attack that can keep picking itself up as long as copies are in your discard pile. This move lets Jacob's deck comfortably survive into the mid game and then have a critical end game as soon as all copies are in rotation. And he's able to throw a series of 5 or 6 attacks that are all coming in for nearly double-digit damage numbers. Now when it comes to his foundations, Jacob sported heavy copies of cards like Chivalrous Competitor and the newcomer Big Appetite for lots of draw power to keep his 5-hand size character fueled with resources for days. We also saw heavy main deck copies of Prehensile Tail and Pull No Punches, 2 very solid cards but with back-breakingly powerful deadlock abilities to stop rivals from building heavy defensive walls to protect from our late game Relentless Barrage strings. All in all, Nomu is an extremely simple but effective defensive and offensive package all in one. Jacob's been playing this deck for a very long time, constantly improving it over sets, and he came in swinging with a very stable list that props up all of his character's weaknesses and really capitalizes on his strengths. Despite it all though, it was not quite enough to take a home run against Kevin Broberg's Momo deck on the good symbol. While his pedigree knows no bounds, Kevin's deck choice was also incredibly on point for an event like this. Momo is a toolbox legend of a character, being able to go and grab any weapon card from her discard pile whenever she wants, as well as building down her weapons and assets right from her card pool. It is very tough to ever catch this character without everything she needs. On top of that, building down the cards you block with as well as a ton of speed manipulation means Momo is almost always able to block out until she's out of cards. She's a seriously flexible character with a massively high skill ceiling who's very tough to take a games off of.
Now because of that, she's seen lots and lots of success in the metas of the past, but Kevin's deck brought a ton of very new technology onto the table. On the good symbol, this deck sought to combine many different elements all in one. Given that the word weapon is on our character card more than once, it's safe to say that we're playing a lot of those in there. But the weapon package was not enough to satisfy Kevin, as we incorporated both ally and echo engines in here to all work together and create one fluent line. Double Trouble and Twin Sword Slicer make up a lot of our offense, utilizing that echo keyword to constantly replay our attacks, turning 1 into 2 non-stop, with Twin Sword even being a weapon for us to go and pick up with Momo. Now next up, Command Pigeon Flock lets us build in ally foundations, things like Study Group Leader and Friend of Animals. Friend of Animals being very important to this deck, as its enhance can snap in momentum for us, fueling that momentum cost of our echo attacks. Starting to see how everything works together here. Now our critical foundations do not stop there though, as we also saw Kevin heavily using things like body rejuvenation to recover health. Between Double Trouble discarding our cards and Momo destroying them if we build them, we have tons of ways to get it into our discard pile to activate that response. Now speaking of destroying cards, Small and Limber sees something leave our stage anytime we activate either of Momo's abilities. So it's going to be readying itself non-stop, essentially always being 2 or 3 foundations across both turn cycles. Now, it wouldn't be Momo without the assets, and this is really where our packages start getting linked together. UA High is at 3 copies in this deck due to its utility, either grabbing Command Pigeon Flock to build in more ally foundations and keep the engines going, or to go grab our other echo attack in Double Trouble for some crazy strings. Training Weights was another star player. This asset gets more and more damage pump every time you use it, so being able to use it 2 times with every echo attack is super strong. It also syncs up with 2 of our ally foundations, as it commits another foundation to ready itself for cost, thus unlocking more power from the responses on Study Group Leader and Friend of Animals. As you can see, there was a lot going on inside this Momo deck. She has always been one of the most toolbox characters in the game, but Kevin really pushed the limits of what that meant by fusing all of these different engines together to make a real bento box of a deck. And his mad scientist brew proved itself worthy, as it took him all the way to victory in the entire event. After a grueling 3 games with Jacob in the finals, Broberg proved he hadn't gotten rusty in the slightest and was always going to be an insurmountable mountain when it comes to defending his home turf, as well as being an impeccable deck builder and massive positive driving force in the community. And with that, Rochester showed us a wonderful show and an incredibly exciting slew of games. Of course though, if you watched all the action live with us all weekend, you already know that. Another RLE marked off the list, but the season isn't done quite yet, gamers. Before our series of national events are going to be underway, we've got one final regional, and it's in the UVS Games home turf of Las Vegas, coming up very soon on September 30th. Signups are live, so make sure you get in early so that you can help raid the RLE. I'll be there, of course, getting the latest scoops on all the action, but if you can't make it out there with me, be sure to catch all of the games live with us over at UniVersus CCG on Twitch. I cannot wait to get on over to the City of Sin and sling some cardboard with everyone, and let's hope we can stay classy during it all as well. Until next time, I hope I'll see you there, UniVersus.